Good evening. I call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge for Monday, June 14, Flag Day 2021. Can I ask our guest of honor, Pete, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good, Pete. Okay, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll call for our first post-COVID open meeting?
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Trustee Paveza.
Here.
Trustee Snyder. Trustee Mattal. Here. Trustee Smith.
Here.
Mayor Grasso.
Here. Before we get into our agenda tonight, I wanted to take just a couple of moments to remember Dave Allen, a former trustee of the Village of Burr Ridge from 2005 to 2011. Dave died on Monday, May 31st. He was appointed a village trustee in June of 2005 to finish out my term as trustee after I was elected mayor. And Dave continued to serve on the board until April 2011. In September 2005, Dave was appointed to serve on the Stormwater Committee, which he continued to do so until his recent passing. He was also on the Public Safety Committee from 2006 through 2008. It is the dedication of residents like David Allen that make Burr Ridge a very special place. I am grateful to Dave and his family for all of his service to the residents and businesses of the Village of Burr Ridge. We extend our deepest sympathy to Dave's wife, Joan, his son, Mark, and the entire Allen family. And with that, I defer to Trustee Al Paveza.
Thanks. I met Dave when I signed up for a senior baseball league that he was organizing. I didn't realize that he lived in Burr Ridge, and over the years I got to know Dave very well. During that time, I realized what a strong background he had in finance and management. So when an opening opened up for a trustee, I recommended Dave to the board. Dave was interviewed by the board along with two other people, and he was chosen for the job. Then he ran for election, and he got elected. He won. The following time, when he was to run for re-election, he had a position where he was going to spend a lot of time out of town. He didn't want to just be a part-time trustee, so he didn't run. A few years later, when he had the time, he asked to get involved again, and he was assigned to the Public Safety and also to the Stormwater Management Committee, where he spent many years. I knew Dave Allen and Mary Lou McGore, who passed away recently. They are both perfect examples of the type of residents that give their time, their energy, and their talent to keep Burr Ridge that special place.
Thank you, Al. We'll move on now to our agenda. That takes us to item 3, presentations and public hearings. There are no presentations or public hearings tonight. Item 4, the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so request, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed by the board, opened for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. 5 minutes. A, approval of regular board meeting of May 24, 2021. B, receive and file Economic Development Committee of June 2, 2021. And C, receive and file blank commission of June 7, 2021.
Remove, please.
Remove. C?
Thank you. Yes, 5C.
Okay, that takes us now to 7 resolutions. There are 6, there are no ordinances tonight. 7 resolutions. B, adoption of a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Burr Ridge and the Village of Willow Springs and the Justice Willow Springs Water Commission. 8, considerations. C, approval to hire replacement water and wastewater supervisor to fill the vacancy created by the retirement of James Lucas. D, approval to hire replacement assistant water operator to fill the vacancy created by the promotion of Peter Guth. E, receive and file resignation letter of records specialist Heidi Nelson. F, approval to hire a replacement records specialist to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Heidi Nelson. G, receive and file resignation letter of acting finance director Amy Nelson. H, approval of employee leasing agreements with GovTemps USA LLC. That's for Amy Nelson's temporary replacements. I, approval of Mayor Grasso's recommendation to reappoint members to standing village committees and commissions. J, approval.
Please.
J, remove. K, approval of purchase of a key tracing box from Real Time Networks of Vancouver, British Columbia in the amount of $14,545. L, approval of vendor list dated June 14, 2021 in the amount of $239,106.82 for all funds, plus $184,644.66 for payroll for the pay period ending May 29, 2021, for a grand total of $423,751.48, which includes special expenditures of $22,420 to Keesler's Police Supply for 4 body shields and $21,045.55 to ComEd for transmission line tree trim trimming. Got to get that one. Okay, that takes us back to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? 5A and B, 7B, 8C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, and L.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Matal? Yes. Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
5-0.
5-0, the motion passes. Okay, that takes us to 5 minutes C, receive and file Plan Commission minutes of June 7, 2021. Trustee Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a minor omission. I want it to be known that Trustee Smith and myself both attended the Plan Commission meeting, as well as the previous one. It's been a past practice to make mention of those elected officials, those appointed officials that attend these meetings. For example, if I had a question, I didn't attend, and I had a question and I know I could see from the meeting minutes that Trustee Smith attended, I could call him and ask him, what was the general feeling? What were some of the sticking points? What were some of the reasons it was voted no? What was reasons it was voted yes, and so forth? Things that may not be contained in the minutes. So that's why it's important that I think that these other individuals who attend these meetings be noted in the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you making a motion
And
to amend?
with that addition of those 2 names, I'll make the motion to approve the Plan Commission meeting minutes from June 7th, 2021.
Can I get a second as amended?
Second.
Schiappa, second. Okay, any comment? Any public comment? Roll call, please.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Matal? Yes. Trustee Smith? 5-0.
5-0, that motion passes. That will take us then to 8J, approval of fiscal year 2022 membership dues in the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference, DMMC, in the amount of $5,966.47. Trustee Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important that the residents know the services that we receive from the participation in this mayor's organization. This past Saturday, I was in training for 6.5 hours as a newly elected official, and I can tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The professionalism, the folks that were on that training, I mean, we had the mayors from Naperville, from Darien, we had trustees from Oak Brook, from Willowbrook, we had a lot of direction from law firms, and this organization is well worth the money, and I'm glad we're part of it.
Thank you. Any other comment on, well, let's get a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept 8J, please.
Okay, and that is a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 membership dues to the DMMC in the amount of $5,966.47. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any comment? Any public comment? Roll call, please.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Matal? Yes. 5-0.
5-0, the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Smith, Trustee Smith, for that comment. Now, that takes us to Resolution 7A, consideration of resolution of appreciation recognizing retirement after 32 years of dedicated service to the Village of Burr Ridge, James Lucas. I have a resolution here to read. Resolution of appreciation recognizing retirement after 32 years of dedicated service to the Village of Burr Ridge, James Lucas. Whereas James Lucas has provided exceptional service to the Village of Burr Ridge since June 27, 1989, and will on June 25, 2021, retire from the Water and Wastewater Division of the Public Works Department and has provided said service with efficiency, thoroughness, dedication, and integrity. And whereas James Lucas has provided outstanding support and service to the residents and businesses, having begun his career as a general utility worker and being promoted to supervisor of the Water and Wastewater Division in 2003, providing knowledgeable management and oversight for the safe, reliable, and highest quality delivery of water and sewer services through 103 miles of water main and 47 miles of sanitary sewer main to the Village of Burr Ridge. And whereas James Lucas has dedicated countless hours, oftentimes after hours and weekends, responding to emergencies and working on water main breaks to expeditiously restore water service to residents and businesses while seasonally snow plowing the roads of Burr Ridge during historic snowstorms. And whereas James Lucas has witnessed the village grow from 2,500 water service accounts to the current 4,300 accounts, has inspected more than 42 miles of new water main installations, or over 40% of the village's total system, assisted in the 1996 project to construct 4 miles of water transmission main from Bedford Park, and has most recently inspected and protected said transmission main while a section was relocated under the I-294 mile-long bridge. And whereas in 2016, James Lucas received one of 3 statewide awards for Operator of the Year from the Illinois Potable Water Supply Operators Association, which recognizes exceptional service, effort, and commitment to the community and water industry. And whereas James Lucas, by virtue of his 32 years of employment with the Village of Burr Ridge, has provided outstanding service to Burr Ridge residents, businesses, mayors, trustees, and village employees, all of whom are urged to recognize James Lucas's exemplary service and contributions to the Village of Burr Ridge over the past 32 years. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois, that James Lucas shall hold a place of high esteem in the minds and hearts of the residents and employees of the village, and is offered our sincere gratitude, congratulations, and best wishes on the occasion of his retirement after completing 32 years of service. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution of appreciation recognizing the retirement after 32 years of dedicated service to the village of Burr Ridge for James Lucas?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Show unanimously approved this day, this 14th day of June 2021 by unanimous vote of the Board of Trustees. We thank Mr. Lucas very sincerely. I know he's shy, and he didn't want us to make a big deal of it tonight. We should make a big deal of it. Jim, we appreciate everything you've done for the village, and good luck on your retirement. Yes, Al?
As a member of the Water Committee, I've worked with Mr. Lucas over the years, and I can tell you he's done an exceptional job, especially when we were getting our own Chicago water main in from Bedford Park, and we were switching over from Justice Willow Springs. It was a major project, and it was handled flawlessly.
Thank you. Yes, Guy?
I've always been impressed by the number of residents that have written in and commended Mr. Lucas for his fine service to the residents. Residents go out of their way to make a special note of his attention to detail, his thoroughness, his courtesy, and his exemplary knowledge here in the village. And just want to make sure that Mr. Lucas knows that his efforts are well appreciated by the residents and by this board.
Thank you. All right. Dave, do you want to say anything? Okay, it's all good? Okay, we covered it. Thank you very much. All right, that takes us to 8 considerations. Consideration of a Plan Commission recommendation to approve a special use for a restaurant with outdoor dining and alcoholic beverage sales, and a variation to reduce the number of parking spaces required for a restaurant Z01 2021 312 Burr Ridge Parkway, Rovito, Andrews. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is item 8A. This is a Plan Commission recommendation to approve both 2 special uses and a variation for a restaurant at 3112 Burr Ridge Parkway. So this was held on 2 different dates on a public hearing basis of the Plan Commission, May 3rd and June 7th, 2021. The petitioner, Mr. Filippo Rovito, is requesting permission to operate a restaurant at the subject property. There are 2 special uses and a parking variation here. The special use is to permit a restaurant with sales of alcoholic beverages, as well as a second special use to permit outdoor dining at a restaurant. There's also a variation from Section 11 of the zoning ordinance to permit a restaurant without the required number of parking spaces. These variations have become somewhat commonplace at County Line Square due to the lack of legal parking, overall legal parking at the property. So as I said, the Plan Commission considered the matter on 2 separate dates, continued to June 7th, and concluded with their recommendation to approve all 3 of the entitlements that were discussed previously. Again, this is for a new restaurant in County Line Square Shopping Center, including the sale of alcoholic beverages and outdoor dining. The petitioner is generally describing a special use which involves a bar area, plated foods meaning that there's not a standard kitchen in this particular establishment. This is more of a waiting area or a lounge, not necessarily it's a restaurant in the most accurate name possible, though. They did submit a business plan. It was entitled the Restaurant and Bar Plan for the proposed business. Business plan included hours of operation and a commitment to provide valet parking at all times. There was also a revised findings of fact for the special uses and the parking variation, which were included. The significant number of public comment was received on this particular petition. It is the majority of your packet this evening. The primary issues discussed at the Plan Commission were that of appropriate land use, parking, operating hours, as well as the simple involvement of the property owner overall regarding land use there itself. Again, ultimately, the Plan Commission felt that the statutory findings of fact for all requests were met, and they did recommend that all 3 petitions be approved by the board. Commissioner Joe Petrich is here to represent the Plan Commission. If you have any additional questions as to the thought process or the reasoning behind any of their decisions or consideration, I would direct your questions to him. He is available to answer your questions. The minutes are included, as Trustee Francis had pointed out earlier. I will be here to answer any questions regarding going forward that you may have or about the petition itself. I'll turn it back to Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. As we do with all such requests, we start with the Board of Trustees. Does anyone on the Board of Trustees have any questions or comments at this point?
Mayor, I have a few comments, please.
Sure.
So,
Trustee Smith, go ahead.
so as Trustee Franzese had mentioned, he and I were at both Plan Commission meetings. And number one, I want to commend our Plan Commissioners. They went through a pretty tough ordeal, a pretty tough task, and they're a great group of commissioners, and I'm glad they're here to support Burr Ridge. Another commentary is the way Mr. Rovito was treated. As a resident, as a business person, it's just disheartening to see how some of our residents can treat individuals that live here, that have a thriving business, that are employers. It's disheartening. Having said that again, there are some considerations that I would like to see looked at from our board here in regards to some of the specific recommendations by the Plan Commission, if I may start.
You have the
Okay.
floor.
So the one issue, and I read the correspondence from our residents, it was all basically in regards to the nightclub, which obviously that is not happening, but there was quite a lot of correspondence about possible noise. And currently, the recommendation is to have outdoor seating to midnight. I'm proposing that gets changed to 11. Keep the indoor till midnight, but change the indoor or the outdoor to 11 o'clock. I think that may put some folks at ease in the village. I think that if we can try to limit some of the noise that could, be prevented, I think that's a good thing for all of us. So that would be a change in the recommendation from the Plan Commission in regards to outdoor dining. The other area, which is the variation for parking, here's where I have a few concerns. The number one on that item is the ownership shall apply for a PUD on a property within 30 days. I don't think it's fair for us or any entity in Burr Ridge to ask the tenant to be responsible for the owner's action of the mall on something as significant as the PUD. So that is an item that I'd like to see removed. I think we are all in agreement that we need to do something about that area for parking for a long-term longevity, but that is an area I don't think that should be weighted on the tenant to be responsible for. Number two, under variation of parking, there is a request to remove the tent over at Capri Restaurants. During the Plan Commission meetings, it was definitely suggested that the two business entities are separate, and I find this would be kind of punitive against the Capri Restaurant by forcing them to remove the tent. We are not here to hurt the owners. We are not here to hurt the employees of Capri. And in fact, we as a board have approved a tent program to go into the fall. So I would like to see that removed. And then the rest of it I am good with, to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
I just
trustee
had.
Mittal?
Thank you. Yes, I read through all the notes, the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting, and a couple of questions, because there are a lot of residents that are not, they don't want a new restaurant or a lounge to come up because they're concerned about noise, and, we have to keep our residents' views in mind. But I do want the businesses to thrive, and I want the businesses to grow. So I just want, will there be a plan where if the noise level does go up, is there some sort of recourse? That's one thing. The other question I had was music. Originally, we said we're going to have live music. Is that going to be the case, or is it going to be just indoors and just kind of background music outdoors? That's something whenever Mr. Rubito talks about it, he can maybe address. The variation of parking, I think there's a lot of talking points in that, but coming back to your question, I think the tent removal was requested to increase the number of parking spots available. So And so it's a complicated situation, I agree. I totally agree that the village supports the tent program, so it kind of seems counterintuitive to have it taken down. So, but if we need more parking spots for the two restaurants, then where do we get them from? So that's kind of my commentary.
Thank you. Anybody else? Trustee Scapa?
I had a question regarding number 2, the special use for the restaurant with alcoholic beverage sales. So it says that they'll cease operations, all patrons shall vacate the premise no later than midnight on any given day. So with this specific liquor license, what do other restaurants have regarding what time they can stop serving?
So the most traditional liquor license we have regarding standard restaurants is a 2 a.m. closure.
Okay.
It was a recommendation of the Plan Commission that they close earlier on a business plan basis.
Okay.
And that's historically been a practice available to the Plan Commission and the board, is to give a 2 a.m. license, but then condition the use to close or vacate at a specific time. So
Okay.
they are legally allowed to be open till 2 a.m. on certain nights, but at the same time, the Plan Commission felt that an earlier closure was more appropriate. But there is a liquor license mechanism to allow it to be open till 2 a.m. on certain nights.
Okay. So the Johnny Cabs that we just approved,
Correct.
what time are they allowed to go?
I don't remember exactly. I don't think there were any conditions based on them closing earlier than 2, but I could be wrong about that. I just don't recall.
Are there any restaurants or bars closing at midnight, or is this the only bar or restaurant that would be closing at midnight?
Most do not stay open till midnight, especially during the week. Most will close around 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock.
I'm talking about the liquor license.
I'm sorry. I believe maybe County Wine Merchant may be open until 2 a.m., but not many are open past midnight, if any. We have traditionally been
The liquor license, what time are they allowed to be
2
open
a.m.
to?
2 a.m.
2 a.m.
Any restaurant, yes.
Okay. And we're saying that he should be open till midnight?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else at this point on the board? Yes. Trustee Francis?
Yeah, so I had asked staff to, take a survey of liquor licenses in the village, what the permitted hours are, and what the actual hours are. And in County Line Square and in the Village Center, Monday through Thursday, they're open till 10 or 11 p.m. They stay open, even though they're permitted to stay open longer. And on Fridays and Saturdays, it's typically 11 o'clock or midnight. There's one exception to that rule, and that's County Wine Merchant, that may stay open till 1 or 2 a.m., dependent upon whether he has business or enough business or not to warrant staying open. So typically, we're asking this petitioner not to do anything any different that's already being done here in the village, and that's close up shop after midnight. So, and as well stated by at the Plan Commission meeting, nothing ever good happens after midnight. And we all heard that before from our parents. So, and we don't want to be the destination spot in the suburbs. Okay, Hinsdale closes at midnight. Let's go to Burridge. They're open till 2 a.m. Let's see what's going on over there, and bar hop like that. We don't want to be known as that kind of a destination drinking place. So, I'm all in favor of actually taking a look at these liquor licenses and considering changing the H-class liquor license from 2 a.m. to 12 p.m. But that's at a future date. There was many comments and questions at the Plan Commission meeting about noise, and there was a chart furnished on page 139 of the PDF. If you could go to that, please. So these are noise complaints filed by residents of Burridge Village Center condos. Okay, so that's across the street, across Burridge Parkway in the Village Center.
Wait, we're not there yet?
No, I just clicked away.
You were, there you go.
Sorry, go ahead.
The top line, Village Center condos in 2020. Chief, I put you on the spot here. Were there any complaints, noise complaints from Ambiance or Chasemore in 2020 that you're aware of? Noise complaints?
No, those are all the complaints.
Those are all the complaints. So all the complaints, all the noise complaints that were received in 2020, when we had the tents, we had the outdoor dining, and all the outdoor activities in 2020 because of COVID, all the noise complaints came from Burridge Village Center and not Chasemore nor Ambiance.
Correct.
Very good.
The number has not changed. I did a report this morning, year to date, so June 20, to now, and we still stand at 7 noise complaints in County Line Square.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm sorry, through June 7th. So June 7, 2021.
June 2020 to the current date, we're still the same.
Okay. And typically, when there is a noise complaint, how is that handled? Just so the public knows.
Well, in all of these complaints, the officers responded, they talked to the business owner, they tell the business owner there's a complaint, and the business owner complied. In all of them, there was a warning given.
A warning was,
If
sorry, go ahead.
if it continues, then there's a citation would be issued, village ordinance.
But as far as you know, all these complaints, all these noise complaints were handled on the first discussion with the owner, and they were resolved on the spot, correct?
Correct.
Very good. Thank you for that. I want to talk a minute about the PACE agreement on page 181 of the PDF, please. So, there's a lot of discussion about this agreement at the Plan Commission meeting, and there was question as to its validity. There's question as to the executive director. Does he have the authority to issue an agreement like this? And this has been the basis for off-site parking now for an existing restaurant here at County Line Square. And I'm just a layman here. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an expert on this. But you know what? Here's an executive director. He goes out and gives permission for someone to use some of the PACE property. As far as I can tell, it's within his authority. I've seen nothing that says he doesn't have the authority to issue this kind of agreement. So I take it for its word and what it stands for, and that's an agreement that this parking can be used for the private entity that it's issued to, Capri Restaurant. So just wanted to make mention of that point. I agree with Trustee Smith about what he said about how the residents, certain residents, not all, but just a few, handled themselves at the 2 Plan Commission meetings, and that was the result of those, that behavior came to be in our code of conduct for residents participating at village meetings, and I'm glad to see that was put into place. That's all the comments I have from now, and I'm sure there'll be some more after the public has a chance to weigh in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else at the board level? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience, public comment now on this item? Please feel free to come up, identify yourself, and you'll have up to 5 minutes. If you want a little bit more than that, obviously, there's no hammer.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Fox. Thanks for giving me a chance to chat. I live in the 450 building across the street. I'm not here to call anybody a liar, but I can tell you that I definitely made more calls than you just put up on that screen. I will say,
In 2020, Ms. Fox?
yes, last
Okay.
year. And I know you and I have spoken on the telephone. I've either attended these meetings in Zoom. I was here on May 3rd. I was horrified by what was allowed to go on here on May 3rd. It was such an intimidating atmosphere that a neighbor and I left because we did not feel comfortable to speak. I am not here to slam Gigi, his restaurant. The food is exceptional. The service is great. I've been there a bunch of times. I've lived here for 9 years, so this is not personal to you at all. But I live there, and I have an outdoor patio on the 2nd floor. I bought my unit because of the outdoor space. I moved from a home to a condo. I didn't want just a balcony. I spend a lot of time out there. I invest a lot of money in gardening and furniture, and I enjoy my outdoor space. And last year was the worst of the 9 years I've lived here, the 8 at the time. It was definitely also Countywide Merchant, so it wasn't just Capri. There was loud karaoke coming. I walked over at some point, and there was loud drunk karaoke till midnight every weekend. I am not exaggerating. Every weekend from May through September, there was loud drunk karaoke every Friday and Saturday night, and sometimes Sunday until 11 or midnight. It was unbearable. I never could have my windows open, ever. With my windows all tightened up, it was still unbearable. And I couldn't play my own music on my patio because it simply, you could not hear it. I'm not being dramatic. I even called other neighbors over that live on the other side of the building to make sure that it wasn't just me, like at the end of my rope. Because you know, you can get kind of sensitive about something and then it seems magnified. And my neighbor Tina was horrified that this is what I had been going through all summer long. So I love Capri, and you do whatever you're gonna do, but you have to respect that you have neighbors across the street, and the noise does affect my peace, and I think I deserve that. I pay tax to live here just like everyone else. And so my concern is the noise. And my concern is that I called every Friday and Saturday and sometimes Sunday all summer long. So you don't have a record of those calls. As a resident, that's really concerning to me. I'm not here to lie about it. I promise you this summer, when I call, I will make sure the officers sign something that I make up, so I have proof that I called every weekend. But I can tell you I did. So as a resident, I ask that you just take into consideration that half of that building is negatively impacted, and I am the only one brave enough to come here from my building and stand up here and speak. The only person. Either because people are friends with Gigi and they don't want to offend him. One person in my building refused to sign a petition because he said Gigi helped him get his business license. That's great. I'm all for friendship. I run a business. I'm all for all of that. But the fact that I'm the only person in a building of 52 units that had the balls to show up and speak in front of you and Gigi because of our peace and quiet is really worrisome. And I also, after speaking in that Zoom board meeting, whatever it was 6 months ago, got a call at my office from somebody that told me to watch my back because it was written up in the patch. And I was like, what? I mean, I just complained about the noise. So I'm only here to say, please take us into consideration, and I'm all for businesses being successful, but the outdoor noise it's unacceptable.
Ms. Fox, if I can ask you a question or two.
Yeah.
What you told me, what you said right now is what you and I talked about. I want to say more than 6 months ago,
Yeah,
but it was.
I have no concept of time.
But you have been consistent. But you also were consistent that this was coming from the, to use your words, the drunk karaoke at County
So
Wine
last
Merchant.
summer certainly was,
Yeah.
I've been here 9 years. The noise from, I think it's Bo Jackson's golf outing that you have every year, right?
It's this, and it's this Thursday.
And then, yeah, so that tent seemed to stay up longer and longer, and then other events would go on, and the loud outdoor music would go on. So it did start with Capri, but last summer, certainly, the noise was much worse from County Wine Merchant than Capri, for sure. So it's just the noise in general that I didn't know anything about the County Wine Merchant expansion, or believe me, I would have been here to speak about it. So this is just the overall noise in general there, and it's concerning that I already listened to drunk people in the parking lot across the street from Capri every weekend night, and I knew what I was signing up for when I moved in. The woman who lived there before me warned me, and it is what it is, right? I live across the street from a strip mall with a restaurant that's very popular. I got that. So that's one thing, listening to people fighting, laughing, whatever. But the music that has gotten worse and worse over the years is become intolerable. And last summer, I get it. COVID was hard on everyone. I've lost $3 million in my business. So I appreciate that. I want to see businesses thrive and make money. But I also want to be able to come home from my 12-hour day and have peace and quiet and sit on my patio with a glass of wine or a glass of water and be able to play my music and enjoy my space without having to be blown out by the live music in the tent at Capri or outside at this new patio or County Wine Merchant. And I think that's fair. I mean, I don't think that's asking too much as a resident. And I promise you, I'm not the only person in my building on that side that feels this way. And they will text. I was just out of town and somebody texted me, here it goes again. I'm like, sorry, man, I'm out of town. Did you call the police? I mean, I can't be the only one. I don't know what to tell you.
Just so you know, I did get an email today from
From David
residents
Arnold.
in the 450 building. Also, I won't paraphrase what it is, but the only complaint that I understood from that email was the possibility of noise or noise from the
Right.
karaoke from last
I mean,
year.
honestly, parking's not a concern of mine, right? If I'm driving to Capri, there's something seriously wrong with me. I live across the street.
Right.
And honestly, I don't want to feel like I can't walk into your restaurant and have a nice meal because I've stood up here and talked against it, right? And I can tell you that's how people feel. So I got up and walked out of the May 3rd meeting because I was like, this is intimidating. And I love your restaurant. And whatever your personal past, that is what it is. It's not my problem. But my peace and quiet is my problem.
Sure.
So I feel like what you guys allowed, or whoever it was, because I was sitting out there, allowed on May 3rd was inappropriate and unacceptable because you allowed that rambunctious, inappropriate behavior, and it made it very hard for somebody to feel comfortable to stand up and speak their mind without feeling like they were going to be blackballed. And that's not
That was the
okay.
May 3rd Plan Commission meeting.
That
you're
was,
talking
yes,
about.
correct. So like I said, I wasn't in
And
here
the
because it
people
was so
that
crowded.
were angry were really the ones that were opposed to it, right?
It was no, it was both sides. There was cheering, there was hooting, and I mean, it was
Oh, okay.
it was outrage. I was outraged that that kind of behavior was allowed in this kind of community, truly. So I would strongly suggest that some decorum is required, or people get kicked out. Because there were people that wanted to speak their minds in a respectful way, not personally against Gigi, just about the noise, and we all got up and left because it was just really intimidating.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Anyone else would like to be recognized? Please state your name.
And good evening, Neil, Neal Smith, Smith, address 550 Warrenville Road, Suite 460, Lisle, Illinois.
Are you here on your own behalf or representing someone?
I'm representing a coalition of folks, Jennifer being one of them. Obviously, she doesn't need me to speak for her. She's one of the members. She's very eloquent.
Okay, would you tell the board who your clients are for tonight?
So coalition includes Ambriance Homeowners Association, Jennifer Fox, Capri Express. That's the coalition here. All right, so.
Ambriance, HOA, and Capri Express. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I heard some of the comments here from the board members, and I'm glad to hear you thinking about this. Some of you have been to the Plan Commission meetings, so you were able to attend. What's evident to me here is that there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of things to be thought about in this. This is an important issue. Mayor, in the April 29th patch article, you promised the village would engage in an open process on this issue, including noise, hours of operation, parking, among other things. We just heard from Ms. Fox. We know there's a noise issue. We know we need to keep talking about that. We know there's an issue about parking. The Plan Commission suggested the owner come in for a PUD. I think that's a great idea. The parking issue is a center-wide issue, and we can't just keep granting variances, or he's never going to come in. And he's been in here before. The Plan Commission, the village, has tried to urge him on. What else is going to get him to come in here? Another issue, and this is a big one. It's the PACE agreement, or the PACE non-agreement, as I would call it. Capri, Mr. Vervito, have been in here several other occasions beginning in 2015. And each time they were in here, the PACE agreement was a big issue, a big, huge issue. It was, in fact, the linchpin of your decisions. You were conditioned his variances on PACE agreement being in effect. The Plan Commission, when they heard it in 2015, they continued it a couple times for him to get the PACE agreement, because he referenced it orally. So he said, come back, get the agreement. And then the Plan Commission and this village board conditioned the variance on the PACE agreement. Apologies. Mayor, in August 20th, 2018, you told the Plan Commission members that Capri valets routinely use PACE lots to store cars. That Capri requires the staff to keep cars in the PACE lot as well. So we can't say it's not a pertinent issue, the PACE agreement. The Plan Commission, they did a good job the other night looking at all the issues, but I think they gave short shrift to the PACE agreement. They took a trust me approach. They said, I see the agreement there on the paper. I have no reason to believe it's not good. And a trustee here tonight kind of said the same thing. He said, let's just trust that it's there, that it's good. But it's not. I'm an attorney, so I don't just trust that something is there and valid. I ask questions, and I've done that with PACE. We don't know who signed the agreement. They can't provide me a single document that shows when it was approved at a meeting. They can't show me anything to indicate that it's valid. It's an agreement that you conditioned previous variances on. It was the linchpin. And we don't even know, as we sit here today, whether it's valid. In fact, all we know from what we have, the conclusion that I draw as an attorney is that it is invalid. And in 2018, following the variance, when it came before the village board, you said, if anything happens with this variance, quote, the matter shall be referred to the Board of Trustees at the next available meeting for consideration. You were very concerned about it. If anything went wrong there, you wanted to know. And now you know. There's not a valid PACE agreement, the linchpin. I want to talk about the tent next. The Plan Commission was rightly concerned about the tent. You should be too. We're here in a meeting. Nobody's wearing masks. The tent is there for COVID purposes. That's over now. There's no reason we shouldn't wait and put this on hold until the tent is gone. The tent takes up a lot of spaces. So many spaces that nobody can even tell how many it's taking up, but it's a lot. We all know it's a lot. There's already a parking problem there. So why can't we just wait it out until this tent's down? I want to talk about the outdoor dining area. This is another reason we need to continue this matter and look at it further. The outdoor dining area, your village code says you've got to be able to go inside the restaurant and outside the restaurant from the village dining area. Not go out on the sidewalk and go in the front door. You've got to be going in and out of the village dining area from the outdoor dining area. You've got to be able to go in the restaurant and out. And that's for liquor purposes. Planning Commission said fix it, but it hasn't been fixed. One side still does not comply. Black letter zoning code, and it doesn't apply. Let's continue this so we can fix that. Let's see some plans where it is fixed. And lastly, hours of operation and business plan. Again, the Planning Commission did some hard work. They decided midnight. I think it's right to consider pushing that back, especially in light of what Mrs. Fox was just up here saying. Okay. At this point, I would conclude, and again, I want to ask, are you going to fulfill the promise of openness you made? Step back. Ask the petitioner for more information that he didn't provide in 2 meetings of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commissioners did a good job, but they didn't have all the information they need. They didn't have the ability to get all the information they need. And you need more information. So is this going to be a transparent process tonight? Or instead, are you going to vote tonight, a mere week after the Planning Commission finished? I urge you to take a step back and continue the matter so you can address the many unanswered questions, including critically pace, the lack of parking, and the tent issue. I can answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions of Mr. Smith?
Anything?
Good evening, Mayor
Good evening.
and trustees. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to share some thoughts and ideas in regards to the request this evening. My name is Mike Mallon. I'm the managing partner of Mallon and Associates. My office is located at 105 Christina Circle in Wheaton, Illinois. As I presented at the original public hearings, I represent several homeowners as well as an existing business at County Line Square. Attorney Smith indicated previously in terms of who our clients are. I was asked to provide my retail real estate experience as well as a zoning opinion regarding the special use and the parking variation that's in front of you this evening. As a way of background, I have over 40 years of commercial real estate experience, as well as a degree in urban planning. I worked for the Village of Lombard for 7 years and was their Director of Planning and Zoning. I also have served on my Planning Commission in Wheaton for 8 years as the chairman as well as vice chairman. It is my professional opinion as an urban planner as well as a retail consultant that the revised petition that you're considering this evening at 312 Burr Ridge Parkway does not meet your standards as set forth in the Village of Burr Ridge zoning ordinance. I understand that you have received my professional opinion that was in the Planning Commission's recommendation. So I'm not going to go ahead and share that with you because I'm sure that you've already read that in preparation of tonight's discussion. What I wanted to do this evening was to compliment your Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals for conducting a thorough as well as a complete hearing. The Commission did an excellent job of listening and allowing the neighbors, as well as our team, the opportunity to be heard and to share our concerns regarding the proposal. After 2 hearings and countless evidence as well as testimony, your Planning Commission recommended approval of the request with conditions. I would strongly suggest that the board adopt the resolution with the Commission's conditions. The proposed conditions, as presented, help to address many of the concerns that were expressed by the residents as well as those of our team. They went ahead and they ensured that that proposed business would not have a negative impact on the shopping center as well as the adjoining homeowners. Lastly, the condition regarding the owner or requiring the owner of County Line Square to apply for a planned unit development is essential and is clearly provided for in your comprehensive plan. By having the owner and the village work together on a redevelopment plan that goes ahead and addresses that shopping center and at long last the parking issue that has existed there for years can be viewed as a real game changer for the center as well as for Burr Ridge. The PUD can be used to address other issues that affect the long-term impact of that shopping center. And in today's retail market, it's essential to address the issues of visibility, facade improvements, uses, and well as parking and landscaping. That's what's provided for in your sub-area plan of the comprehensive plan. So in conclusion, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present our comments. Thank you to your Planning Commission for all their hard work and efforts. And now really the burden is on you to go ahead and accept their recommendations in its entirety and to be able to move forward with the future of County Line Square. So thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts and comments with you this evening.
Thank you,
If
Mr.
you have
Miller.
any questions, I'd be more than happy to address those.
Do any of the trustees have any questions of Mr. Mullen? Thank you, Mr. Mullen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees. My name is Nicholas Esposito. I represent the Revitos and the restaurant with respect to the petition. I also have a business in Burr Ridge. I have a law business in Burr Ridge across the highway, so I pay taxes here too. I have been, a little over 40 years doing a lot of different real estate and commercial real estate work. I've done zoning work in many of the municipalities around here. I've dealt with the Plan Commission. I was on a Plan Commission. I was a board trustee. So I have a background. I understand the position you're in and what you do and appreciate that in the staff. And I've also worked with the staff previously for Mr. Revito. Thank you, sir, for your comment about the Plan Commission. I appreciate that. And there are some items in here, however, that I would like to address as well, that have been raised by Mr. Mallon. We look at, can I see the next page, Mr. Mayor?
There.
All right, you can go back to one again. It appears to me, well, first of all, let me say something about the noise matter that Jennifer, and I didn't get her last name,
Fox,
that she raised,
Miss Fox.
Ms. Fox.
I'm sorry, Ms. Fox.
Ms. Fox.
Right.
I appreciate her comments very much, and I think Mr. Revito does as well. And I don't think that anybody wouldn't be concerned about her concerns. I also believe that it's, Mr. Revito's here. The other restaurants that businesses that she talked about, they're not here. He's sitting here, he's listening, he's taking it in, he's not offended by her, and there would be no retaliation toward her. But he's here, he heard it, and I think he takes it seriously. And you all know his restaurant, you've probably all been there. So I will tell you that for him, on behalf of him, I tell you, we take it seriously and respect her opinion about that and her concerns. So going back to this, if you look at one in the beginning there, in the middle paragraph, the special use permit number 1, we get that, we get number 2, and the items that are 1, 2, and 3 below that, to the extent that they are required for purposes of you passing this petition, I would think that this petitioner should have some opportunity to discuss those matters. So it's our opinion that the petition can be approved, and there would be an understanding that we would discuss those other matters. The petition could come back to the board, or a revision of it could come back to the board after we've had a chance to give our opinion and thoughts about these other items. I think it's interesting that what's being discussed is that the midnight hour would be for everybody. And I appreciate that, because I appreciate if you're going to do that, we don't single out Mr. Revito or anybody else. But there are some thoughts that we would like to share, but not in this venue, with staff if we could, to discuss that. With respect to PACE, as was earlier recognized by the trustee, it's their contract. It's their signature. I don't see anybody here swearing under oath or not saying that we didn't authorize that thing. It's there. It's a contract. They have to abide by it, so do we. With respect to ingress and egress, as well as liquor control, I have discussed with the village in the past ingress and egress issues, which for the most part we resolve. If there are any further issues, we can discuss those. The outdoor dining plan and remaining details approved by the staff, I would assume again in conjunction with Mr. Revito and allowing us to sit with you. Now, this is the first time you've seen me here. You know, why didn't I come in earlier? Why am I coming in now? Quite frankly, the Plan Commission meeting disturbed me as well. And I've never seen anything like that. And I'm not blaming the commissioners, nor the chairman. I just thought the whole thing was ridiculous and offensive. I'm Italian. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. So I'm here with Mr. Revito. I've been his attorney before. This is not new. It wasn't an emergency phone call. I'm here to assist him in helping you in any way we can to get the petition approved. We're listening, we're all ears, so we would request that the petition be approved, and any of those items that you think are worthy of further discussion with Mr. Revito in cooperation with the staff. We've done it before. We're happy to do it again. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Esposito, any trustees have any questions of Mr. Esposito? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Petrich. I'm representing the Plan Commission at this meeting. I wanted to just make a few comments. One, to answer your question, Trustee Schiappa, Johnny Cab's proposal business plan was midnight on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, but it was not a condition of the vote, but his proposal.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Joe, I'm sorry.
The Johnny Cab proposal and business plan was midnight Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but it was not a condition of the Plan Commission made, because that was their proposal.
That was their volunteer.
To answer your question. I wanted to also mention that, the clarification of the meeting minutes, I contacted Joe that I did actually second the motion on the variation for parking. And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because I was the only dissenting vote on the outdoor dining, primarily because I thought it was a little late, but I support the Plan Commission's recommendations. But the reason I was the dissenting vote, and it's documented in the meeting minutes, is because of the Village Center. Most of the discussion was all the ambiance. Ambiance is buffered by a building, but the Village Center across is not, as Fox did say. That was the reason for my dissenting vote. As far as the PUD for parking, John Garber was at the meeting. He was representing the owner, and he seemed receptive to doing a PUD. He didn't necessarily agree to 30 days, but they were receptive to it. And the reason that it's important to the Plan Commission is, at this point, any new tenant requires a variation on parking. And something has to be done, because right now, we're living with X number of parking spaces throughout the entire day. But County Line Square isn't like that. Mr. Vito's restaurant is open later. So things like that, plus the West End parking has to be considered. And the only way to do that and stop variations is to do a PUD. And that's the only comments I had, unless there's any questions.
Does anybody have any questions of Commissioner Petrick?
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. No? Anyone else want to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up. Identify yourself, please.
Robert Ivanelli. I don't live in Burr Ridge.
Can you tell us where you live? Which village?
Westmont.
Thank you.
I frequent Capri very often. And this woman that talked about the noise.
Ms. Fox?
Yes. I have compassion for anybody that feels that their life is being disrupted. But I want to make it very clear. These are very responsible business owners. They take great pride in their restaurant and their service and their food. The problem with the noise comes from the west side of that shopping center. It's a very small business that has karaoke quite often, very loud, as many as 4 or 5 people playing instruments. He always leaves the door open. From the restaurant in Capri, we could hear them. And I'm willing to say without a doubt, I have never experienced, in the 9 years I've been going to that restaurant, ever a karaoke. If there's any noise that's being generated in that shopping center, it's not from his restaurant. It's from a place called the Wine Bar, and I have nothing against the individual that runs that, but he runs a loud, very loud business, and he stays open. I've gone by there at 12 o'clock, and you can hear it from his restaurant when I leave. He doesn't have outdoor speakers. He doesn't have live entertainment. On the rare occasions where he's had a DJ, he shuts down at 10. This guy goes till 12, 1 o'clock.
Who shuts down at 10?
If he's had...
Oh, you're talking about Capri?
Gigi.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
If he's had a
But
DJ
you're on the
there,
county wine market.
it's not blasting, okay? And the DJ's gone at 10. And I think in the last year he's had 1. He hasn't had any this year, okay? He's very responsible for the people that live in that area. I know he is. Because one of my pet peeves is loud noise, loud music. I'm old, I don't like it. And that wine bar, he ignores everybody and just does what he wants to do. You know, it's kind of like a spit on the floor saloon. You know, you go in there with boxing gloves on. That's not the case with this restaurant. And I just want you people to know that. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Paul, before you start, what places are the Sox in right now?
First by 4.5 games. I think 5.5, actually.
Meeting adjourned.
My name's Paul Jepson. I own Kirsten's Danish Bakery along with my wife. We are one of the 2 tenants that's been in that shopping center since it opened, 32 years this October. And as I pointed out in the last meeting, it's all about parking, parking, parking. But if you start at Capri and go all the way through the shopping center, the only places open after 6 o'clock at night would be Capri and the new restaurant. And then if you go around the corner, you've got the wine bar and the sushi place. Then you would have to go all the way to Capri Express and La Cabanita before you found open businesses after 5:30 at night. The food store then is open till about 9 o'clock, and there's not a single store going west from there that's open after 5 o'clock. So I don't understand how 6 businesses can cause such a huge parking problem, especially when I've been in and about that center for all these years. Number 2, the attorney stated that COVID is over, we should get rid of the tent. Ever owned a restaurant? Have you seen people driving in their cars with their mask on still? I see it all the time. Our customers see it all the time. You have people afraid to come inside, they'll only sit in the tent. My business is up quite a bit since we have our little tent out in front, and if John was here from Patty's, he would tell you the same. We have customers still afraid to come inside. So COVID's over for me, it's over for a lot of people, but it's still out there in a lot of other people's minds. So the tents are there for a reason, it's so that we can service all of our customers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment?
Hi. My name is Bill Savedas. I've been living in Burbridge since 1974. I remember this was the old Farmingdale prison farm. I used to take my kids for arrowheads. When the Capri came in, I was really happy to see an Italian restaurant come in. I love Italian food. So from day one, I got to know Gigi by going to the restaurant a few times. In fact, 3 years ago, we had my 50th anniversary party there. And the wife and me, being on a fixed income, we had people that wanted to come from California, Colorado. So I approached Gigi and a few people there, and I explained to him that, hey, I only can afford so many dollars. Is there something you can do for me? He says, don't worry about it. Okay, don't worry, it's fine. I also said, I got 4 or 5, maybe 6 grandkids coming, and you know how grandkids are in a restaurant. He says, no problem. Okay, thank you. So I'm just talking about the character of the man that runs a restaurant. How he treats his customers is a big deal. That means you're a good businessman. He looks out for his customers. When business increased, he expanded, made room for the customers. As far as I'm concerned, the customers are always first with Mr. Gigi. He's done everything with class. And I think that we will be well worth Burbridge to have him have something in there. It'd be just like the restaurant, it'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Is there any other public comment on this item? Okay, let's turn it back to the board. I don't go around the table. If you want to ask a question or make a statement, this is now the time. Yes, Al?
As Trustee Francis said, and one of our previous speakers, our Plan Commission does an excellent job of vetting the project that's before them. And I've been to several meetings, but I haven't been to these 2. I did read the minutes of the meetings, and I am sure the Plan Commission did an excellent job. And when I see it's a 7-0 vote by the Plan Commission, I have to believe that there aren't too many problems in the long run. Noise, yes. And the only way we can address the noise problem ahead of time is to see what it's there after the fact and then make the the project, the right decision there. But over the years, when I've seen a 7-0 recommendation, I have to believe that they've vetted it and they find it very good to approve it that way.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Tony?
So, regarding the parking, I go to Carly Line Square 3 to 4 times a week, all hours of the day, and I always find a spot. Always. It's never right in front of the store I'm going into, but I do find a spot. Maybe got to walk a little farther. That's fine with me. So I don't have an issue with parking. The only issue I have is that we're limiting his hours, and I think he'll most likely be closed somewhere between 10, 11, 12, but the fact that we're limiting his hours to midnight versus 2 when everyone else has a 2 o'clock license, I have an issue with. So I'd like to hear more from my fellow trustees about being equal with the other restaurants that have a liquor license to 2. And I think with the outdoor, I think we can dial that back as well. I think I agree with Trustee Smith to go back to about 11 o'clock, which I think is a good idea to deal with the noise, where I don't think much of the noise is coming from pre-restaurant. I think it is coming from another establishment. And so those are my thoughts for now.
Thank you, Trustee Schiappa. Anybody else? Trustee?
I will kind of agree with Trustee Schiappa. Parking, I think we're kind of spoiled in Burridge. We want parking right there. You go to Oak Brook and you park on the other end of the mall and you don't complain. So I think that issue can be resolved, but I do like this PUD idea, because otherwise we have to come up, go back to the drawing board with every issue. Noise, I think, we need to have kind of some sort of recourse. If the other business is creating the noise, then I think at another meeting we need to take a deeper dive and see how we can rectify that, and because the residents do deserve to sit outside and enjoy their private time as well, and noise should not be an issue. Liquor license, Trustee Francis brought up a good, the information that staff gave you, effectively, the liquor license is just being used till 12 a.m. at the most. Very few restaurants are really open past that except for countywide merchants. So maybe we should just change it for everybody. If 12 a.m. is the Cinderella time, then let's just have it for everyone. And I agree, it should be fair and equal for everyone. It's equity for everyone, I agree. So I think noise is the only thing that seems to stand out and that we should be able to find a solution for.
Sure, go ahead.
Quickly answer that. So regarding noise, we can now do adjudication cases regarding noise. If we have excessive noise, maybe someone refuses to turn down the volume, whatever it is, the adjudication process allows us a very convenient method to at least create some enforcement mechanism. Previously, we had to go all the way to circuit court, and it may not have been worth it. But in this case, because we have a local venue, it is much easier to have some basic enforcement be done through a judge than was previously available to the village. So we can use adjudication for excessive noise should it come up in the future.
So can you explain the process? So let's say I'm a resident, I'm offended by the noise. Do I reach out to Chief Madden and then it goes into adjudication? Or can the resident just call?
So the way that noise often works at places like restaurants, not saying this restaurant or that restaurant, just restaurants, it's typically late at night. Code staff is not there. So the way it would be adjudicated is through a police report and possibly a ticket.
Okay.
We do have some basic noise ordinances that we can rely on for those types of things. But typically that police report, if it is warranted, would turn itself into a ticket. Now, the beauty of having our police department do a lot of courtesy checks is that 99.9% of the time, the issue is remedied on the spot. That is to say that the door is shut, the karaoke is turned down, or people will go inside, or whatever the solution may be. So there may not always be a need for adjudication, to be clear. But in the event where someone is excessively loud and maybe refuses an officer's request, again, it's a courtesy request, we can use adjudication as a fairly expedited, convenient way to make sure we have some sort of documented enforcement on the case for something like that. We can cite them on the spot, but if we wanted to have a fine issue, that's the way we would do it, through an adjudication here. But the residents, yes, would reach out to the police through their police report, yes.
So, but the police has to catch them in the act? So when I say that, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, if there has to be some report made by the village to confirm that an issue of some sort is occurring. If by the time the police is already there, it's hard for us to take a report that there was loud noise if nobody on staff, including sworn officers, witnessed it. We don't doubt that it did occur, or something did occur, but there has to be some evidence observed by officers through the adjudication process that something was going on. And I would say that the vast majority of cases, the issue is still ongoing by the time the officer arrives.
okay.
So.
All right.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Yes.
So, we're here in this board basically dictating, suggesting how Mr. Revito should be handling his business. What seems to be missing in my world is I would like to hear Mr. Revito tell us what is fair and not fair, because through the whole planning commission, there wasn't really a whole lot of interaction from the petitioner to the plan commission and to us. So we have a lot of parts here, the tent removal, the putting the valet service, the time constraints. And I just would like to have, Mr. Castillo come up and just say, does this work or not work? Sorry, let me repeat that. So what's missing, I think, is that we've not heard from Mr. Cavito. During the Plan Commission, through this meeting, and there are a lot of constraints. Removal of the tent, restrictions on the hours of operation, the requirement of valet parking, the 30-day plan to put a PUD together. Maybe this is out of the ordinary, but it would be nice to know if you are okay with all this while we're having this discussion.
Right, I'm going to ask Mr. Esposito to step up, but before you start, first of all, are you done?
Yes.
Are there any other comments right now from trustees before we get to Mr. Esposito? Go ahead.
I'd like to speak, but I'd like to have his questions answered first.
Okay. Mr. Esposito, there's a couple of different things in no particular order. We want to hear about, first of all, the midnight closure on the weekends. There is a proposal to limit the outdoor to 11 p.m. And comment on a tent, though I must say the board's voted on a tent program, and I don't see how the Plan Commission could ask us to rescind, if you will, the tent program, and we've given everybody tents till the end of the summer. But let's see if we can flesh out some of these issues, please.
Well, I think the midnight hour consideration has to be fair across the board. It just has to be. And if that requires further study, discussion with all the business owners, including Mr. Revito, not just him, but everybody, and have an understanding among everybody, if we're all going to be treated fairly, of course we'd look at that and discuss that with you. I don't have an answer for that other than to say we just want to be treated fairly. A precise midnight closure for his restaurant might be a little more difficult. He has a larger establishment, which has a lot of patrons, and people are waiting and cars are coming up, that type of thing. So there has to be at least some flexibility. But other than that, I would say we need to have a discussion then of all the businesses, how it affects everybody. And maybe individually understand from each of the different businesses if it affects them or it doesn't. Maybe most of them it doesn't affect. Maybe him it affects much differently and in a different way and greater. And so I think we have to have a discussion about that. I can't give you an exact answer other than to say that.
I'm going to add a footnote to this because what caught my eye in the Plan Commission report, amongst other things, was something my father often said, and apparently other fathers often said, and that is nothing good happens after midnight. you better be home by that.
I'm a father too,
So,
I get
right,
it.
right. And so I've already started a discussion at the staff level to start speaking to the various restaurants in the village about the fact that they seem all to be closed by midnight, even on the weekends. And I agree with Trustee Francis, maybe we should be looking at the overall hours of operation. And maybe we are a village that closes up at midnight. It seems like we were closed at midnight anyhow. So why not, like with the PUD idea, which I will get to next, why not address the reality of it? So I think, Mr. Esposito, we may well be looking at, as a board and as a village, surveying the restaurants and finding out really closing up at midnight. Now, you heard Johnny Cab's, their business plan was to close on.
We appreciate that. We would provide honest input.
So that may be something that this board will consider, especially after we get information from staff. As to the PUD, this has been a drum I've been beating. And I hate to say it, when I was first mayor, and we've been beating this drum constantly, and so I have asked Evan to inform the Garbers that we're going to proceed as a village, if necessary, for a PUD. I understand that we may well have the right to do that. And we'd like their cooperation, and we'd like them to sit down and work a plan out with us. But I agree with Mr. Mullen, and was happy to see him say it, from their perspective, that the Plan Commission is actually bringing to bear the very issue that we've been trying to struggle with all the time, and that is the PUD. The reality of that is that the PUD will stop the parking problem because it'll be based on a comprehensive plan. It probably won't add any additional parking to the space. We can't create land, but it will eliminate this issue about a paper parking problem that everybody brings up every time we try to open up a restaurant. So I can assure the board that we are actively pursuing a PUD. If it has to be led by the village, so be it. But we've invited the Garbers, John, and the sons, John and Michael, to a meeting that Evan is going to have and report back to me, and we'll report back to. But that is going to be an immediate thing that we are pursuing. There are some other issues. I think the outdoor space, I think there has to be allowable ingress and egress, and I understand that there is a doorway that can be done, and that can be modified to conform with our ordinance. I think that's been recommended, and obviously you have to
We
apply.
have before, and we would again cooperate with the village staff and make sure that, we come to a reasonable conclusion.
Okay, I may have missed a couple of issues, but does anybody else have, Trustee Francis, you said you might have a question or two?
I have some comments, but after these
Okay.
gentlemen, after the gentleman's
Okay.
finished.
Any more, Russ, have your questions been answered?
Yes, they have. Thank you.
Okay. And since we're here in a public forum, does anybody here have a question
Thank you.
of Mr. Esposito?
I want to answer this. Good evening, Mayor, Trustees.
Introduce yourself, sir.
Philip Revito, the owner of Capri Restaurant. I don't want to stay open at 2 o'clock in the morning. I like to go home to my beautiful wife. I understand after 12 o'clock, there's nothing good. I've been there 16 years. Maybe out of 16 years, Capri's been open to 1:30. You don't see no activity after 11:30 midnight in that strip mall. There's nobody in there. It's dead. Nobody's coming or going, only my customers. So 2 o'clock, it doesn't matter to me. Just so you know, I would like to go home early. I wouldn't want to stay there to midnight, to 2 o'clock in the morning. So if it's 12 o'clock, I don't mind. We have 2 o'clock license, I don't advertise it. If somebody comes, they stay. If not, I shut the lights, I go home. I'm a very busy person, I get there very early, I like to go home early. So, thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Before Mr. Esposito sat down, but is there anybody here that wants to ask Mr. Esposito or Mr. Revito any questions?
I'd like to comment on something.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead. And Mr. Smith, this is the second time you're approaching, but come on up, please.
I want to comment on, this is a point of law, because there's been some questions about fairness. We got to keep in mind here that this is a variance and special use request. By its nature, they are asking for special treatment. Petitioner is asking for special treatment. That special treatment is to not have to be able to not have to comply with the law. So fairness would be if they saw the law as written and they complied with it. That's not what's happening. They're saying, here's the law as written, we don't want to comply with it. We want special treatment. Then it comes to you to say, okay, you want special treatment. What can we impose to make sure that that special treatment doesn't hurt other people? So I wanted to make sure that that point was clear. You can impose hours on them that are different than other people in that shopping center, and that's fair. Because they're asking for treatment that is special. They're asking to be able to not comply with the law. So I just wanted to make that point.
Can I just make one simple comment?
Sure, Mr. Esposito,
We're lawyers,
you know,
right?
like a trial, this is it, okay?
This is it.
Okay.
This special treatment, it's a special right. The ordinance allows this. It's his right to ask for this, and he's asking for it. He's not saying, give me special treatment as a person. He's doing what the ordinance allows. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment on this issue? Okay, no further public comment. Yes, Trustee Francis?
Add some comments, please.
Sure.
So, Ms. Fox, I agree with her comments about the noise. I live in the village. If I lived in the village center and I had to put up a drunken karaoke at night, I'd be upset too. And I'll be calling the police. And I'd make sure that they followed up and make sure that that drunken karaoke was shut down. Okay? I've been over to that particular establishment on an evening when they've had karaoke, and it is loud. I agree. She has a point. And when the outdoor seating evolved into outdoor music with several musicians, loudspeakers, microphones, and such that individuals can get up and sing, who may or may not be good singers. Many were not. I could understand her point very well. So as far as the noise issue goes, I believe there's two components to that noise issue. One is the existing businesses that may or may not create noise that's offensive or troublesome for the residents nearby. And the other is noise of this that could be created or generated by this new business. As far as the existing business, this all ties in with the 2 a.m. thing. This particular business is open past midnight, open till 2 a.m. Some people are there. They've got noise complaints and noise issues. So again, I think we need to be looking at the 2 a.m. license and see if it's really applicable to this village as a whole, and look and applying it fairly to all the businesses. Okay. What else? The point about access to the south outdoor dining area, that's a detail that is typically worked out with staff when it isn't complied with on a drawing. In my experience as a former plan commissioner, these minor details have always been worked out to the satisfaction of the staff, and they also meet the code. For example, if I were to go to that restaurant a year from now and I see that they wouldn't have any ingress and egress inside the restaurant, that the control feature wasn't there for the liquor, I would make it a point to call staff immediately the next day and say, you know what? They said they were going to do this. You said you were going to do this, and it wasn't done. Let's get it done, or don't allow it. Okay? So I have every confidence and every faith that our staff will take care of this minor detail in this plan. Okay? Item 3, my notes here, the PUD. Could you pull up page 70, Evan, of the PDF, please? This is the special chart that was generated by staff, and this shows all the parking at all the different hours, and this is what's required is in the area up on top, the various bars across horizontally. Spaces available are in the pink down below, and spaces required. And you can see that even though there are 499 spaces available, at no particular time, and taking a look at the County Line Square as a whole, no particular time, anytime, do we ever exceed 499 spaces? Meaning the greatest number is 484 spaces required, and what's available are 499. Sure, you can't park out in front of County Wine Merchant, or you can't park out in front of Capri Express to pick up your to-go order. You may have to walk some aisles to get there, but there is parking. You're not parking on County Line Road. You're not parking over at the Village Center. You're not parking across County Line Road. Okay, there are spaces that are available according to our current zoning. So what the PUD does for us, it allows us to take a look at the big picture. Right now, we're taking a look at a snapshot. For this particular petition, 37 spaces are required, 20 are available. Oh my goodness, we have a parking problem. Well, yes, in the microcosm of that one space, of that one little snapshot, there's a problem. But if you look at the big picture, the entire center, yeah, maybe a customer may have to park over by Brookhaven. And I've had to park over by Brookhaven. But I'll tell you what, it's a lot better walk than when I go visit my son in Lincoln Park, and I have to drive around for half an hour to find a parking place. I still can't find a parking place, and I have to park at a public garage for $25 an hour, 5 blocks away from his apartment. That's a parking problem. We don't have that here, okay? And I believe one of the commissioners mentioned that also when his experience living downtown also, his experiences parking downtown in the city of Chicago were along the same line. So if I would encourage staff to ramp up the PUD effort to get this under a PUD so we can look at the big picture and see if an intense use comes in that it causes us to exceed the 499 spaces that are available, then we have a true parking problem. Now, in my years on the Planning Commission, we've looked at reconfiguring this parking lot at County Line Square umpteen times. I can't tell you how many times Doug and staff have looked at reconfiguring. And every time they look at reconfiguring, they've squeezed a few more spaces out. I think the last time we squeezed 18 or 20 more spaces out of that existing surface parking area. But there's no more to be squeezed out of it. That's it. 499 is all we're going to get. So now we have to judiciously look and see how it's going to be planned out. So I have every confidence that the parking situation will be met, that parking will not be an issue, and that valet services that this gentleman is offering to provide will help alleviate that problem along with the PACE agreement. So the 2 a.m. issue, I spoke about how we should look at all the businesses that have 2 a.m. liquor licenses and consider rescinding those back, or bringing those back to midnight so that all the businesses are treated fairly. And I encourage staff and this board to pursue that. It was about 15 years ago, prior to Patty's Sunrise Cafe, prior to Moondance Diner, there was a tapas bar proposed for that space. This came before us when I was on the Plan Commission. And it was small plates, it was some cocktails, it might be a dessert. It's a place you stopped before or after a meal, or you just wanted a light appetizer. You didn't want a full 4-course meal. You just wanted a little snack and a cocktail, and some live music was proposed. It was a one-man guitar player, or maybe an electric piano or something, a vocalist, but it wasn't live music that was dancing. It was background music, okay? And that proposal was met very favorably with the Plan Commission and also with this board. Unfortunately, I think that happened right around the Great Recession, and it never went in. So, but that was a great concept. This is very similar, except he's not going to have live music. He's going to have, they call it piped in music over some speakers, background music, okay, which I'm fine with. So, see if there's anything else I had. I think that was it. Thank you.
Very comprehensive, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we have, this item has several parts to it, so let's walk through it by each issue so we know exactly what we're dealing with and what we're agreeing to and not agreeing to. First of all, if I may, is there any consensus here to require, and frankly, I don't know how someone who comes in for one business, you ask them to remove a tent from their other business, but you know, that's before us. Does anybody want to require Capri to remove their tent when we've already approved a tent program for the summer for everybody?
No.
I don't see
Now we're
any
on required.
consensus for that.
I see about 10 parking spaces being picked up. So now somebody can park closer to the front door.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned the parking. One of the requirements was submission of a parking management plan. I don't know if we've fleshed that out tonight. There were some specifics that the Plan Commission talked about. That seems to be something that they asked, are we live, Mr. Revito and his planner to sit down with staff and come up with a parking management plan. Evan, is that something in the works?
So a parking management plan is very simply just a commitment to do the sub-conditions here, 3, A, B, and C in the variation, which is to say that they would provide valet parking off-site. That means, that is to say, commit to provide valet parking, storing the cars off-site behind the building or at the west end of the shopping center. That they reserve.
So off-site includes over by Brookhaven?
To me, this reads off-site, meaning somewhere not County Line Square.
Okay.
So most likely a pace lot or something to that effect. B would be the reservation of 4 parking spaces for valet parking that does not interfere with any drive aisles or fire lanes. So somewhere within that, those bursts right there, right in front of the restaurant or nearby the valet booth, to have some sort of valet parking reservation there. And then third, a commitment that the employees be required to park off-site or behind the shopping center. That is consistent with the other location that the petitioner owns at Capri. I believe that exact same condition exists for Capri as well. So the parking management plan is really just the summation of those 3 conditions in actual firm. There's no report or map or the like to actually provide. It's just the presence of doing it in everyday life.
Does any of the trustees have any issues with any of those items?
Other than, did we require a parking plan for Johnny Cabs?
A parking plan is usually the same thing.
Did we require off-site parking?
No.
Okay, so for this particular business and for Capri are the only 2 businesses in County Line Square that we require off-site parking.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
So that begs the question. We've got 4 valet places in the front. I mean, it would be for valet parking?
Staging, right?
Staging or staging? Staging, okay.
And does Capri have 4 staging spots right now?
Capri normally has 4, and this would be another 4.
This would be another 4.
Correct.
And there are none for Johnny Cabs?
Johnny Cabs is planning to use the drive aisle, and it has actually been a discussion on the staff level that if they are going to reorient the parking lot, that further valet staging be made in the drive aisle nearest to the building instead of using parking spaces. Now, I don't have any issue with parking spaces being used because the improvements have not been made, but there has been some discussion with the property owner about having the drive aisle be used more of a valet staging area with bump outs and one-way traffic, but we haven't fully fleshed that out yet.
That's longer term then. So I would support staging spaces for Johnny Cabs as well.
Right, and that brings up the issue of the PUD discussions that we are going to have and insist on with the Garbers, and that PUD will include, I believe, a parking plan to address La Cabanita, Dow, Johnny Cabs, Are We Live if it's passed tonight, Capri, and for that matter, any other new restaurant. Part of the PUD discussion will be a parking plan to address all of these issues for all of our restaurants in County Line Square. So I don't know how we balance that with tonight. I'm open to suggestions.
I think that future parking plan takes into consideration what is being suggested here, if it's approved.
Right.
And also what's been previously approved for the other restaurants.
Yeah, the PUD, sorry, go ahead.
And balance it and try to make it fair for all.
So the PUD in staff's mind would be intended to balance current public policy, starting tonight included, with the needs of the future as well. Thank you.
All right.
One question.
Yes.
So would it be proportionate to the traffic that each business is generating? Because the parking requirement varies with the traffic each, or the,
When you say varies, what?
so like Capri has a greater number of people coming to Capri versus, La Cabanita or Dow. So wouldn't it be in proportion to that? But that would be decided by the PUD, and they would set something in
So
place.
the way that many communities regulate parking is on a shared parking basis. Shared parking basis means that there are, and I'm going to use the real example of, there are 90,000 square feet of gross leasable area, GLA, at County Line Square. And a traditional approach to parking regulations is that you need to have a certain amount of parking per square foot, regardless of the use at the shopping center. That's because, as we've seen here with the parking map, businesses are open at different times. Kumon, Cycle Bar, these are more morning-oriented businesses, whereas Capri, Johnny Cabs are more evening businesses, but they all share the same parking lot. And so other communities have predominantly, not exclusively, but predominantly, sought regulations which promote shared parking calculations. What you are doing now is to have individual tenant parking calculations, which is what you're describing, which is to say if you have a larger footprint, you have more staff, or you have greater turnover, those things matter in providing how much you have parking-wise. So a standard retail shop is 1 per 250 square footage, whereas a restaurant is 1 per 100 plus 1 for every employee they have. And that's because they're considering that a restaurant will be a more crowded use. You'll be there longer than you would if we're at a boutique or a hair salon perhaps, or maybe not. But that's addressing the size and the efficacy of the use at hand. But as I said, many municipalities have sought it fit to be more efficient and simply say if you're going to reduce or add uses, you should reduce or add parking based on the overall uses at hand. That's a more simplified approach to parking management and parking regulation that's employed in our area.
So, I'm sorry, did he answer your question?
He did.
Okay, so when you look at our notes, what came in from the Plan Commission, it's asking for a parking management plan, and then just above that, it's asking for the PUD with a deadline for putting in a recommendation or an application of July 7. I can assure you that we are going to fast-track that PUD.
Right.
And I'm suggesting that if there is a motion tonight, the parking plan be tied to getting the PUD done and moved along, consistent with what Evan just described, so that we resolve this parking issue going forward.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Just to be clear, PUD would be part of the motion, part of this proposed ordinance?
I don't believe
As a
so.
recommendation, I would hope that would be part of it. I don't know that we can legally require that, but I think if you direct staff to pursue the PUD with a parking plan,
Right.
I can assure you, staff has been directed, and it certainly is my goal to get something to you. And I have initiated calls today to John and Michael, and I've sent email to Evan about scheduling a meeting, which he's already either returned their calls or is about to schedule that meeting. So I can assure you that that is something we are on top of. And so it's probably, as we often do, make a recommendation to direct staff and report back, within a reasonable amount of time to us. I think there's consensus that we close the operation at midnight on the weekends, and I am in support of reviewing the overall liquor laws of the Village of Burr Ridge to see if we should be a midnight closed village. I think there's support for that, and I think the practicality of it is that we are closed on Saturday nights and Friday nights at midnight. And that's not a bad thing. I think the old adage of nothing good happens after midnight is in fact true, and we've seen that unfortunately over and over in a city not too far from where we live, okay? And closing the outdoor space at 11, I think that's reasonable too, and I think that's something, by the way, I'm going to ask Evan to go back and look at the business plan of Johnny Cabs and for that matter, Dow and anybody else that has an outdoor space to make sure that that's consistent with the thinking of the board, which would be 11 p.m. as I see the heads nodding. The ingress egress you have to solve, and I believe it's already on paper and comply with our ordinance. I'm open for anybody to assist me on anything I've missed right now. Obviously, this is a special use for the business while the current ownership owns it, and it will not pass or be transferred to anybody else he might sell the business to, should he sell the business. I think I covered it, and based on what I looked at. Did I miss
Mayor,
anything? Yes.
So on the PUD, I just want to be clear on this. Since the staff is going to pursue the PUD with the shop, with the mall, then I'd like to see this restriction taken off for the petitioner. Because right now it states that the petitioner has to, in 30 days, have a PUD submitted, and I'd like to have that removed.
Yes, and I think I'm trying to handle that by saying I don't think we can abide by what the Plan Commission is asking us to do. We certainly have all the respect in the world for the Plan Commission. There isn't a better one that I've ever seen work, but I think that's a bridge too far. We can't legally do that. But I think we should achieve their goal, and I think it's an admirable goal, and I think it's always been the right solution. And I think if the board directs staff and underscores that this is what the board wants to see, understanding we can't make Are We Live do it, but it certainly is something we want done. That frankly will help me and Evan in dealing with the Garbers and making it clear that, you know, there will be no more tolerance of this situation, that we need a PUD. So I think that's the best way to handle it, unless somebody's got a different solution.
If I may, just so
Yes.
I can have a little bit more official direction, I would like to have that be a motion, the direction for staff to place it on the next agenda to hold a public hearing regarding the PUD. That'll allow me to communicate much more clearly with the property owner about your direction. So again, that's a motion to direct staff to place that item on the next board agenda on June 28th.
We can do that? We can do that. I'm all over that, sure.
I think you can give staff official direction, but because that specific item that related to the PUD is not identified on the agenda, official action should not be taken via a motion and a second. But if you can get the board consensus on that direction, so the staff can move forward with that issue.
So I think I'm hearing the board say we'd like to tee up this PUD for a public hearing, whatever the legal process is, as fast as possible. If it could be done for the 28th, I think we want to see that happen. Okay, and so I'd ask you please to work with council to do that. So no motion, but I think you know where the board is coming from on that. Okay? Perfect. All right, thank you. So can I get a motion? Can I get a motion to approve the Plan Commission recommendation for a special use for a restaurant with outdoor dining and alcoholic beverage sale, and a variation to reduce the number of parking spaces required for a restaurant, Z01 2021, 312 Burr Ridge Parkway, Revito, Andrews. That motion should include closure at midnight on the weekends, closure of the outdoor space at 11 p.m. on the weekends or any other night.
Tent.
What did I forget?
Tent.
Tent. Well, just,
You would not adopt that condition?
we're not going to have the
Just leave it
tents
out.
removed.
Right, so we're removing that.
Right, so just, that should not be
PUD
good.
condition.
With the recommendation to direct staff to pursue a PUD with all deliberate speed with the owners, with the Garbers, to get that done, which will include, within that PUD, specifically include a comprehensive parking plan for all the restaurants
Yes.
in the County Line Square. Did I articulate it all? So,
Egress.
oh, and ingress and egress to be complied with, consistent with our ordinance for the outdoor space.
As well as ownership.
And thank you. As well as it only being applicable to the current owner and not transferable if he sells the property or changes ownership.
And also the parking plan submitted by the petitioner as recommended by the Plan Commission. The commitment for provide valet parking off-site, 4 reserved parking spaces for valet parking, valet staging, and a commitment that employees will be parking off-site or behind the shopping center. That parking plan, that'll be part of this as well?
You're singling out a business that no other business has this requirement, but, you know, it depends on whatever the Plan Commission wants to do. I was hoping, and I thought it was going to be wound into the PUD concept, but of course, whatever you guys want to do.
Absolutely. I just, you know, I wanted to know how to address this tonight. So I was bringing it up.
So your essential question is including the parking management plan in the motion?
Once there is a global parking management plan for the County Line Square, will this be a component of it? I don't know.
Will
We
that
don't know.
override this?
I would doubt it.
I would hesitate to say that the PUD assigned to the entire property will provide for specificity on this level.
Okay.
So I would, if you want to include it, I would include it now. As you said, it can always be overridden by public policy later.
Okay. All right. Just raising the point. Thank you.
Okay, so that is not part of this motion, or it is?
I'm not making the motion.
I'm gonna suggest it's not part of the motion,
Okay.
because we're gonna make part of the PUD, the whole total process for parking. So let's not make it part of the motion.
And as Evan stated, that even if we do make it a part of the motion, once the global parking plan is in place, that will override this anyway, or replace it.
I want to be clear that I think we will try to take into account the basic direction of the board regarding valet parking, but I don't know if a PUD will specifically include tenant-by-tenant restrictions. The PUD is intended to say this is the vision of the property, and
Right.
that the PUD shall include general provision of valet at certain percentage of the property, at the expense of the property owner, and at the condition of the property owner, not necessarily a tenant per se. So again, when I say that, I don't think that, if you're asking are we live conditions for a specific valet plan or provision of 4 spaces, as an example, be included in the PUD, I would say it's highly unlikely. So I'd encourage you to include it in the motion now if that's something you want to include at all. But I heard it going the other way from Trustee Smith.
Okay.
So the simplest way would be simply to strike it from the motion.
Right.
Can we do a parking management plan, a modified one? Maybe we have them commit to the valet parking and the employees required to park off-site or behind the center.
I would suggest almost that it be made as part of the special use. Variations run with land, special uses run with uses and businesses.
Okay.
So I would suggest that if you should approve, if you're intending to, the parking variation generally, but I would simply state that the special use is then contingent on valet parking being provided, generally speaking, or to the extent that you want to at all. And that way it can be more part of the special use. And when the PUD comes into effect, or if it does, specifically regarding the parking, the issue is not really an issue in that sense. It's more related to the business itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, tied to the use.
The use, not the land.
Right.
Because the PUD will override the land issues, but it won't necessarily override the business operations issues, if you will.
So then this would be a business operation issue, technically.
Make it that if you want
To require valet parking.
as part of a special use.
Okay. Is there,
I've got it clear in my head. I know.
I know, but it's, you're requiring valet parking for only this business, and we haven't done that for anybody else. But if you guys want to do that.
No.
that's-
We have required parking management valet for almost every new restaurant in the last 5 years at County Line Square. Johnny Cabs is required to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as we're being consistent.
Capri was at their previous special use in 2018. And pretty much any nighttime-oriented business has been required to do valet, so that is consistent with past practice.
We've only required Capri to park off-site.
That's the distinction.
Oh, that's the distinction.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's required to have valet parking in addition to the ingress, egress, the midnight closure, the 11 closure, it's not
Ownership.
transferable with the ownership. We have the rest of it? Is that it? Got it? Okay. Will somebody make that motion? Yes.
I'd like to make that motion with a comment. I support this petition as a trustee and the petitioner. I support the petition because the petitioner has exhibited success in Burr Ridge with his current restaurant, Capri. There have been many attempts to succeed in that location that met failure. 3 restaurants failed at that location. When the petitioner took over the location, it became a gem of Burr Ridge. The petitioner is an excellent restaurant operator with many successful restaurants in other locations besides Capri. I'm pleased to learn that he wants to make another investment in our village of Burr Ridge.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I make the motion.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comment by any of the members, any further discussion by any of the trustees? Yes.
There was a comment made earlier about special uses, special treatment, and I disagree with that. We have special uses in this village for a particular purpose, so we can monitor, control, and tailor these types of businesses to suit the needs of the residents. So we can control the hours of operation, control the liquor, control the parking in such a way so that it suits the needs of the residents, and it also doesn't interfere with their tranquility and well-being. If we didn't have special use permits, these restaurants are permitted, and we would have no control over that. They'd just be allowed. They come in for a permit for a business license, and it would be allowed. We wouldn't be having this discussion. But because it's a request for special use, we get to go over the fine details of operation with the owner and work out a compromise that's fair to all. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board level? Any? Yes, Al?
I just, with the comments the gentleman made before, I concur wholly with trustee Francis' comments.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board level? Any public comment on this before we vote? Yes, Mr. Esposito, come on up, please. You have to be on camera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees. My question is this. We're just coming out of COVID. People are trying to get jobs or have jobs or have lost a lot of money. What I'm asking is this a hard midnight order right now if this ordinance gets passed? What I'm asking is some kind of a sunset consideration to allow Mr. Ravito to work with his organization and work with staff, because all of a sudden there's going to be a 2-hour time period that they're not going to earn a living. So you've heard him. He wants to go home. I'm sure they would like to go home too. But if he can have a little transition period, we don't want them waking up tomorrow morning saying, what?
Yeah, so to be clear,
I just want to clarify.
the midnight is only right now for Are We Live?
Got it.
We are, however, as a board, as I've directed staff, and they've already done it, looked comprehensively throughout the entire village, and it may well happen that we decide to lower the hours of operation to midnight, in which case we'll take your comments to bear, and we might give them some leeway for that. But this only applies to Are We Live?
Thank you very much for the clarification. We don't want other people to misunderstand.
Sure, thank you.
One question.
Sure, come on up, Mr. Smith.
One of the provisions will be it's not, exclusive to the owner, not transferable. who will be listed as the owner? Will that person be specifically identified in the ordinance? That's my question.
In the ordinance, no, but we'll make it of record, and you can check it and make sure that you know who the owner is.
Okay, how is it made of record, and if it's not in the ordinance, why not?
The petitioner is,
We typically do include a person, the petitioner, as the owner of record in the ordinance. So in this case, it'd be Mr. Filippo Revito.
it would be
and a
Mr.
DBA,
Revito as the owner.
or a DBA as the LLC, which operates the business.
At any event, I think it's important if it can't be transferred, that we state specifically who the owner is, so we can judge that in posterity. So,
Okay, so it will be in the ordinance that it's Mr. Revito as the owner. Does that satisfy your question?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. So we have a motion, a second, discussion. We've opened it up to the public for final comment. We've had all final comment. Any other comment? Roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Matal? Yes. 5-0.
5-0, the motion passes, and just for the record, trustee, I didn't want to bring this up until after there was a vote. Trustee Schneider, who could not make this because he's at a charity event tonight, said he would be in favor of this also if he was here. And then I'd like to make one final comment. Once again, the Plan Commission handled a very difficult situation with a few unruly residents, unfortunately. They did what they're supposed to do. They made significant recommendations to us. They thankfully brought up this PUD, which I was so glad to see, and it gave me a springboard, gave this board a springboard to tackle this issue finally and comprehensively. So again, kudos to Trustee Trupek and the Plan Commission for serving Burr Ridge and keeping this a very special place. Okay, that takes us to 8B, consideration of a Plan Commission recommendation to deny a variation from the zoning ordinance to permit a fence in the side yard of a single-family residential home, B03 2021 16W 361 95th Place, Angela.
I'll be quick, Mayor, thank you.
Please be quick.
This is VO3 2021. This is a request for a variation to place a fence in the side yard. Plan Commission considered this hearing on the 17th of May 2021. Plan Commission is recommending denial on a unanimous basis on the process that there is no unique variation, there's no unique findings of fact to be held about this specific case. I should also note that the fence has already been installed and it is illegal in its installation and that it does not meet other elements of the village code and would need to be removed anyway due to its existing elevation. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the recommendation of the Plan Commission to deny? So voting yes means that you agree with the Plan Commission and you will deny a variation from the zoning ordinance to permit a fence in the side yard of a single-family residential home, V03 2021 16W 361 95th Place, Angela.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Yes.
I had an opportunity to drive by the property. I actually went by it twice, and I see that the fence, as staff points out, is fully installed. It also is a fence that does not comply with our ordinance because it has spear points at the top, which are, we've modified our ordinance over the years to not allow those because they are detrimental to animals that try to hop over the fence. They impale themselves on them. It's an ugly scene. Also, this came before the Plan Commission on two occasions, actually. Once for a text amendment, and it was recommended denial. There's no hardship. There's no reason to change our ordinance to allow fences in side yards, which has been the policy, no fences in side yards for, I can't tell you how long I can remember. And two, second time to come before for a variance to have a fence in the side yard. And he was given a decent stop work order, and yet he went and continued to put the fence in, and the fence is in. It doesn't meet our code with respect to its location, and it doesn't meet it as far as the elevation. So I'm very disturbed that now he's coming back in and asking for forgiveness when he was told to stop, when he was told it wasn't appropriate. And was there ever a fence permit application ever made?
Yes, but the application actually varied from what he put in.
So there was, okay, so strike three. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on this item? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
5-0.
5-0, the motion passes. That takes us to item 9, public comment. Is there any public comment on anything anybody wishes to address for up to 5 minutes? Is there any public comment? There is no public comment. Okay, that takes us to reports and communications from village officials. Any reports or communications from any of the trustees? Yes?
I just wanted to let the residents know that summer has set in, and at the Village Center, yoga on the green has started, and the farmers market has started on Sundays. We have the 4th of July fireworks on July 3rd in Walker's Park to look forward to, and then we're going to have Taste of Burr Ridge on October 9th and 10th, and to wrap everything up, we're going to have a car show on October 10th. So exciting events ahead, and I hope everyone can participate. Thank you.
Okay.
And art fair this Saturday, Sunday, by the way, in the Village Center.
Bring your fleet.
All right, anybody else? Yes, Trustee Francis.
I have three things. First, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Plan Commission for the excellent job that they did, despite the difficult conditions that they were put under. Their excellent leader and Chairman Trupek, and the excellent work by the commissioners doing their homework, researching, visiting the sites, etc. Did a fantastic job, asked great questions, and allowed us to get to this point today. They did all the heavy lifting. Number two, now that the COVID restrictions have been lifted, has there any thought been given for the recognition we have promised past retirees? Specifically, Mr. Lucas, Doug Pollock, Karen Thomas, and so on. People that have retired in COVID or shortly after post-COVID, and we had promised them a retiree luncheon or whatever the custom is, after work get together with some food. I was hoping that would be
Yes, we...
coming forth soon.
Yes, Julie and I have been talking about that and discussing a good date as to when that would be done. So
excellent, yes. Thank you. And number three, I know there's been conversation about this with the chief and some of the residents, but at the Pleasantdale Middle School on Wolf Road, there's a school zone, 20-mile school zone, and there's also a flashing light that is supposed to flash when there's school children present on a school day. Well, it flashes now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when residents go by there, you're numb. You see this thing on all the time. Do I slow down? Do I not slow down? It's Sunday night at 10 o'clock. What am I supposed to do? So I would ask that staff reach out to the school district and ask them to please have this light, for the protection of the children, have this light function during school days and during hours when children will be outside and about, not where they're in class, which is the majority of the day, but maybe when the changing periods. I know they go across the street to the Park District between periods for recreational classes, but if it could be tailored more towards when actually the children are outside and about Monday through Friday. Because my concern is that in today's world with people distracted driving and such, and they see this light flashing 24 hours a day, they're going to ignore it, and it's going to happen during the daytime when some children are out there.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
I noticed the same thing.
We as staff have been looking into ways to make the whole Wolf Road corridor a little bit safer, including possible speed limit.
That's a big picture item. This is a problem right now.
We are looking into that as well, and we third the need to have prompt safety put on the.
Up until last week, this light was on from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You could set your clock. 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., even during COVID when there was no children in there. Now it's 24 hours a day. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I just have a couple things. One, I want to tell the public that there was legislation passed in Springfield concerning lead pipe removal and funds for villages to eradicate their lead pipes. The village does not have any lead pipes. And I just want the residents to understand that we are not a lead pipe village, and so there's no worry about our water supply. Mr. Paveza, Trustee Paveza, and a great board back in 1996 brought us through Bedford Park, Michigan Water, and we have prospered ever since because of that. So there is no lead pipe issue in Burr Ridge. And then finally, it is Flag Day. We should always honor our patriotic holidays. This is one of those days where you literally wave the flag. This country, this state, these counties that we live in, this village went through an awful lot the last 15 months. It is so good for me to see all of our residents out and about, enjoying themselves. It's almost like people have exhaled and now they want to inhale and really enjoy the summer and enjoy living in this great country. Today's Flag Day, remember that we do live in the greatest country in the world. People wake up around the world, they want to come here. This is the United States of America, and we're very, very fortunate to be here. So, and with that, I'd like to get a motion to go into closed session to discuss two things. First, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body under 5 ILCS 122C1, and also to discuss a matter of pending litigation pursuant to 5 ILC 122C2. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Mattal?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
5-0. 5-0, the motion passes. We are adjourned to go into closed session.